also be available to watch on AEST.
Good morning and welcome to the WugulOra morning ceremony, coming to you live from Gadigal country, here at Warani, Sydney Harbour. For over 60,000 years, the custodians of this country have been caring for the lands and waterways right here and throughout Australia. We acknowledge the Gadigal people, the elders past and present, and pay our respects to their continual connection and knowledge of this beautiful land.
Yes, and we extend our respect to all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, sisters and brothers who join us today, representing their own communities and forging pathways for generations to come.
WugulOra, meaning one mob in Gadigal, honours the survival of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and in 2021 we really showed our strength in being one mob.
Oh yeah, from Wilcannia in New South Wales to Arayonga in the Northern Territory, 2021 saw many highs and lows, but throughout it all we witnessed the strength and resilience of our peoples. Elders, community leaders, Aboriginal controlled health services and grassroots movements really came together to protect our families and communities. So from us, our sincere thank you for all of your tireless work the last couple of years. And Luke, amongst the chaos of the year, artists have been really pushing boundaries and exploring new mediums to continue sharing our culture and stories.
They most certainly have. Elona Maguire is a mixed media artist based in Wajak and was in the 2021 Fremantle Biennale. Elona took to the skies with a very new art practice to share the millennia-old stories of Noongar and Wajak dreamings.
Kaya, ngan juruk wang din yiriyak and nicha ngan Wajak Noongar Buja. My name is Ilona Maguire. I'm a mixed media contemporary artist and the artist for the Fremantle Biennale's headlining work, Mumbukai. Using 160 drones, I choreographed this show to tell 3 Wajak Noongar stories from the Derbyl-Yurigan, known as the Swan River also. Mumbukai is the Noongar phrase for where the river meets the sky. I thought it was a beautiful way to name this show because that's actually where we performed the show, somewhere between heaven and earth. The beautiful thing about Mumbukai is the fact that these stories were being told in the place that they came from, and they were ancient stories that came from that place, from the dream time. Throughout the evolution of Mumbukai, we engaged with several Wajak Noongar representatives. We were really able to pinpoint what we were happy to share, what was culturally appropriate, and things that we'd rather just keep to ourselves. As I've been told these stories from a very young age, I was already kind of imagining them like picture books in my mind, and I could easily see how these stories would unfold. When I think about the way that our culture has been shared and taught amongst our mob is the fact that it's through performance or storytelling or visual arts in some way. And I think this is no different, but the scale of it, it evokes the feeling and depth of what the dream time is for us. We had spaces that we were performing in that could fit thousands of people, and I love the fact that I could see so much of my mob coming down. I could see how proud they were to own this story and our story. The fact that it was so empowering for them was really fulfilling for me as the artist.
Well, this morning at dawn, there was a spectacular light display at the Opera House designed by senior Pitjantjatjara man David Miller. So the artwork depicts one part of the journey of the Nintakar, or a Parenti Goanna lizard man, making his way across the country, creating water holes and food sources as he goes. And across the harbour, you can see the Aboriginal flag flying high on the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Flying loudly and proudly, Karla. And how good is the news that came through about the flag? It's finally free.
Yeah, big ups to all of the mob who have fought so hard for this result.
And in particular, Laura Thompson and your deadly crew there at Clothing the Gaps in Melbourne. Thank you for your campaign over the last couple of years. Free the flag. It's back with the people and for the people. Now, coming up this morning, we have performances from the Budja Budja Butterfly Dancers, the Kari Singers, as well as the deadly William Barton. And the vigil took place again right here at Barangaroo last night. And now in its fourth year, the vigil represents an important moment here on the country of first contact. It allows everyone the chance to take a moment to reflect on the facts of history since colonisation.
Yeah, and I saw that you were up there hosting last night.
I was indeed, and I had a fantastic night. It was awesome.
Yeah, and the smoking ceremony was held by Uncle Matty Doyle with a performance by the Janawi dancers, and Daily Riverman Jake Nash took over the curation for the first time this year, and he did an incredible job.
Yes, he did. Now, Jake was also the artist behind the Always sign a few years ago.
Yeah, that's him, Luke. And just in front of us on the hill stands Future Dreaming. So it's another huge installation by Jake.
Yes, I saw it last night. I went up there earlier this morning, and it was quite a special moment of reflection for myself.
Yeah, I also went up this morning and I just took a moment. I think on a day like this, you definitely think about your ancestors. You also look forward and imagine what could be as well.
Yes, you do. And it's really a beautiful space to gather for some truth-telling. Now, we caught up with Jake about future dreaming and what he hopes we all take away from this beautiful work.
My name's Jake Nash. I'm a Daily Riverman. I'm an artist, set designer and creative. In 2019, Wesley Enoch asked me to come and collaborate with him, and he wanted to explore the word always, from the phrase always was, always will be Aboriginal land. I made a 35-metre sculpture that landed on Barangaroo headland, and it was the word always. This year, I've created two more words, hope and change. And there is a direct, I think, relationship between that work and the one now, because it's about change. It's about the future. It's about looking at the country we're standing on and asking, what do we want? Who are we? It's about identity. And they allow audiences to come and engage in both a physical aspect, but also it asks questions of them, who they are and where they stand on these issues. And for this work, Future Dreaming, it really asks people, what do we want? What do we want for our future? We're into our third year of COVID, and I think for all of us, the world kind of stopped. And for me, it gave me time to reflect on who I was, where I was, what did I stand for? And as a First Nation man, I just realised that the most important thing for me is that I want to make immediate change in my lifetime. And so the words hope and change standing in this landscape, I'm asking people to stand in between them. You know, people who come to visit this, they can see their reflections in these words. They can connect with the word and think about exactly how they want to make change. So I hope in a way that I'm engaging with them, not only, on a physical experience, but also, on the psychological. It's an artwork about thinking, but it's also an artwork about standing your ground and saying, this is what I want, this is what I'm demanding for the future. And not just of other people, but yourself. Because we have this moment right now to reset, and we should, and we can. And have the hard discussions, because it's from those hard discussions, that's where real change is made.
Now, it won't be long until the flame arrives here at Barangaroo, and there's quite a crowd gathering here. Now, do you have any more deadly yarns for us, Karla?
Of course. Have you heard what's happening on Gumbaynggirr country up on the New South Wales North Coast?
No, I don't.
I'll give you a clue.
Okay, yep.
It's got something very exciting kicking off for the young ones.
Oh, I know what it is.
What?
The under-6 training for the Koori Rugby League knockout.
Oh, well, not quite, but but I'm sure that training will be happening at lunch, though. The Gumbaynggirr Gingana Freedom School, so the first Aboriginal bilingual school in New South Wales, is going to be opening its doors. And we spoke to Gumbaynggirr men Clark Webb and Uncle Gary Williams about their journey to this historic opening.
The The idea of a bilingual school is actually nothing really new. In the olden days, our old people were educating young people on a daily basis in an immersion setting. Unfortunately, we had that forced break for a couple of 100 years. And then in 1986, a group of 10 Gumbaynggirr elders got together to start piecing their language back together.
The Mordubai Language Centre is dedicated to keeping the language going and building on it, and we do create resources for classes.
Our current programs have been running since 2010, and we run after-school learning centres. We also run community language classes, and we teach language in a number of partner preschools, primary schools and high schools.
To be able to see the young ones learning their language at such a young age certainly gives us great pride.
In 2015, we started to think about how do we create our own school, Gumbaynggirr bilingual school. And ever since then, we've been working towards opening. So we're really excited now to open in 2022, so our children can continue from early childhood education and continue their language journey throughout their entire schooling life. Our curriculum is quite unique. It's an integrated curriculum whereby we're implementing as much Gumbaynggirr language into subject areas as we possibly can, and there's strong focus on on-country learning, but also at the same time ensuring that they're reading really well, writing really well, so that our children are really walking in two worlds and are able to be successful in both worlds.
The language and the people come from the land, and so that if you keep the language strong, then the people are strong as well.
It's really important that we provide educational spaces for our children that are culturally safe, where they can come to school every day and know that their culture is going to be respected and celebrated. That's something that's really important, so important to their self-esteem.
One of our vision statements for Mordubai is Naranga Nginundi Yuladara. It means remember your dreaming.
Oh, gee, the next generation is something else, hey?
Oh, they certainly are. Too deadly.
And I think with incredible leaders such as Uncle Gary, you know the future is going to be in safe hands.
We sure do. And I think I've got a few friends on Play School that might want to learn some of that Gumbaynggirr language. Jemima, Big Ted, and I know definitely Kai would love it. So I have to make a phone call to them up there.
Put a good word in.
Hashtag strong, black and deadly. Great to see you. Now, speaking of deadly elders who have paved the way, this year is the 50th anniversary of the Aboriginal Tent Embassy. Founded on the 26th of January in 1972, when four blackfellas pitched a tent on the lawns of what is now Old Parliament House in Canberra. The Tent Embassy is one of the world's longest continuing protest sites.
Yes, the Tent Embassy has been a meeting place and a place of protest for the discrimination towards Aboriginal peoples, including the decimation of culture, land rights, and the active right to be sovereign people.
50 years of fighting on, First Nations people continue to make action and change to look after this land that we have been custodians of for a very, very long time.
Yes, Ashley Bell is a station owner in Western Australia and uses the knowledge passed on to him from elders to manage and heal the land. And we visited Ashley on stunning Buddy Maya country to listen to his story.
The country's healthy, the people are healthy. So that's our main driver, yeah. My upbringing was out here, out at Ningan Station. I grew up going out to mustering camp in the bush. It was all done by horses back in those days. We lived in a little cottage just at Ningan here at the back. And used to spend all our time with going out in the bush and learning, speaking and learning with other people, you know, the elders and that were here, yeah. It was back in the 50s when I was here as a young kid and raised here. And eventually in 92 the opportunity came to purchase the place and we purchased it, and we've been running it with a strong emphasis on letting the bush heal out here, letting the country heal. And we try and diversify. We do a tourism venture. We also do a bit of stock, but our main emphasis is getting the country back. It's not all about how many cattle you can run and being the cattle baron of Western Australia. It's about looking after the country. There's a big rock that's got an initiation ground, a burial ground and a birthing site there as well. I have uncles that are buried out there. And so we look after that. That's all looked after and managed very well. We've fenced it off and re-veg, do some re-veg work in there, plant seeds in there, quandong, sandalwood, cobblers, and get some bush tucker growing back in the country, yeah.
Well said, Uncle Ashley. Heal the country, heal the people.
Too right, brother. And we can just see the flame coming up now, which means the smoking ceremony is about to begin. So I'll hand you over to Gunai woman Karla Saunders, who will MC this morning's ceremony.
Good morning and welcome to WugulOra morning ceremony. WugulOra, meaning one mob, has been the New South Wales government's sacred and reflective start to January 26 since 2003. I am Karla Saunders and I would like to welcome both the live audience here today at Barangaroo in Sydney and of course those who have tuned into ABC TV around the nation. We've got some beautiful photographers here and we ask today that you remain seated so that the wonderful people behind us can also see. It's a pleasure to stand with our First Nations community today as a proud Gunai woman on Gadigal lands and to honour that resilience and strength and the continuation of our communities for 60,000 years. Especially on this day, a day of mourning. A day which our communities know as Invasion Day or Survival Day. And I'm honoured to be your Master of Ceremonies this morning. WugulOra is organised by the New South Wales Government and Australia Day Council of New South Wales in partnership with the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Lands Council. At dawn this morning, the Sydney Opera House sails were lit with an artwork of Central Desert artist and senior Pipalachera man, David Miller. The artwork features the Guana, or Parenti lizard songline. This songline is known as Nientaka Inma, and the projection coincided with both the Australian and Aboriginal flags being raised, which you can see flying now on top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Both flags will remain at full mast for the whole day. This is symbolic of moving important conversations forward and sharing a combined commitment to harmony and reconciliation. If you look towards Maranawi Cove behind me, you can see the Kumari dancers bringing the ceremonial flame to Barangaroo. The ceremonial fire was lit yesterday and tended to overnight on Meemore, or Goat Island, before travelling here today on the Tribal Warrior to Barangaroo Reserve. Our brothers and sisters from Kumari are the caretakers of the flame around Sydney Harbour today. Sorry there, Unc. I got a bit too excited watching everybody dance. Wanted to jump up and join, eh? Thank you, Kumari dancers. Can we please have another round of applause? Aren't they incredible? Yeah. At this morning's ceremony, we are honoured to welcome Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, the Governor of New South Wales, and Mr Dennis Wilson, the Honourable Dominic Perrottet, Premier of New South Wales, Mr Andrew Parker, Chairman of the Australia Day Council of New South Wales, board members of the Australia Day Council of New South Wales, the Honourable Ben Franklin, Minister for Aboriginal Affairs and Regional Youth, members of the State and Federal Parliament, Mr Alan Murray, Chairperson of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Lands Council, board members of Infrastructure New South Wales, and most importantly, our First Nations community and friends. Now, to welcome us to country, I invite Councillor Yvonne Weldon, Deputy Chairperson of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Lands Council, to speak.
Good morning. This is a solemn day for the First Nations of this country, and we need to show our respects to commemorate their ancestors. Before we start the proceedings, if you are physically able, could you all please stand for a minute's silence? Please be seated. Hello, Elders, New South Wales Governor Margaret Beazley, AO, QC, Mr Dennis Wilson, Premier, Minister Franklin, Andrew Parker, Chair and CEO of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, the many dignitaries, sisters, brothers, gender fluid and gender neutral. I stand before you as a sovereign Wiradjuri woman. I also represent my children and my grandson who have a bloodline to the sovereign Bidjigal people of La Perouse. None of us have ever ceded our rights. As was said, my name is Yvonne Weldon and I am a Wiradjuri woman from Karra here in New South Wales. My ancestral bloodlines connect all along the waters and the lands of the Clare, which later became known as the Lachlan, and of the Murrumbidgee River. I am the elected Deputy Chairperson of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, who are the culture authority under the Aboriginal Land Rights Act for the land we are on. I pay homage to the people of the Eora Nation, who suffered the first impact of colonisation on behalf of all Aboriginal nations. This area is ground zero. Where we are gathered is named after a strong, unwavering and truth-telling Camaraga woman called Barangaroo. I pay my respects to Barangaroo and all elders, past and present, all First Nations and all nations across this country and across the globe. On this day, 234 years ago, my people continued to live on this land, as they did for thousands of generations. But on these waterways, these same waterways that Barangaroo fished, there were changes that came to my people. not peaceful changes, not settled and not invited. What took place was genocide, irreversible trauma, poisons, not just in our water holes, but others had in their hands that later became placed in ours. The trauma and the introductions of new ways of living hasn't been healthy for all. And yet, as the world's oldest living culture, we are told how we should live, creating accumulation rather than needing and sharing. Despite these traumas and shifts in our way of living, we are still here, still practicing, still inclusive. Our traditions are varied in our diversity across our lands, our dance, our ceremony and our welcomes, that continuous link of life, lessons, purpose and nurturing supplies. Honouring our ancestors' footsteps, we are all walking in, and those prints we are making to become our own ancestors in time. Continuing the practice of the many generations before us to the many generations to come. We lived in unison with this land and tell us where our boundaries are through our continual connection across the continent. The landscapes of this country tell our stories through our culture, our history and our boundaries. The Eora Nation's boundaries are the Hawkesbury River in the north, the Nepean in the west and the Georges River in the south. On behalf of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, the elders and the members, I welcome everyone to the land of the Gadigal. I acknowledge the Gadigal people, whose spirits and ancestors will always remain with this land and Mother Earth. As you travel across this beautiful continent of ours, get to know the nations, the tribes and the clans existing here for over 65,000 years. My people are the oldest living culture of the world. It is important to remember and acknowledge the massacres that took place, all those people that aren't remembered by name but are mourned in our souls, the injustices that continue and the unsung heroes, our warriors, that has taken place and what needs to be owned. We all need to change the way we treat each other. Don't judge on what you think you know, but get to know what you don't. The cruelty and inhumane treatment to my people needs to be acknowledged. The rates need to change, not out of a guilt, but to right the wrongs of the past, not to continue to be in our present. If we don't, we will never truly create an all-embracing future. Standing strong, First Nations, all Australians and all nations, working together as one community and achieving as one community. We have hundreds of nations from this continent and from across the globe. So whether you come here via foot, air or water, Aboriginal people are inclusive of everyone and we welcome all. It's about time my people are accepted too. We must commit to making a positive difference, producing a legacy, a complete and an honest history. One word can't do it. It's the behaviours and ownerships of the biases, or rather the racism, that continues. This will then start steps to a future of healing. Think about the difference you are making today that can be the milestones of the future. To make that future possible, let us all draw upon my people's spirits as we continue on our journey. May my people's spirits walk with you and guide you as we strive forward for us all. Before time began, we were here. We have always been, and we will remain. Regardless of whether you call this Invasion Day, Survival Day, or Australia Day, we need to heal, and we can only do this together. Again, on behalf of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, welcome to Gadigal land. This always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Didrigurani ni Yvonne. Nya acknowledge Mirani Gananugang Gadigal Madung Boringiling Yango. Ladies and gentlemen, people of all genders, please welcome Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, Governor of New South Wales.
Bujuri Gamarua, Dian Babana, Gamarada, Gadigal Nagara. Thank you, Yvonne, for your welcome to country. And I acknowledge traditional owners and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging of the First Nations of our state. Premier, ministers, to all here this morning at WugulOra, performing, participating, watching, experiencing, learning. WugulOra means one mob, an expression which signifies that happy lack of formality which characterises our nation. But the last few years have been more challenging than happy, although there have been a few highlights. Scotty Boland's 6 wickets for 7 runs was probably a standout, although I did lose money on picking him as player of the series. But these past difficult years have brought forth many phrases, emphasising that we do things as one mob. Phrases such as, we are all in this together, together we'll make it through. But for many, the elderly, peoples who have more recently made Australia home, and for many First Nations people across New South Wales, a sense of one mob was not universal. Sadly, history tells us that such differential experiences have too often been part of our story. From 1833, North Head, which was called Carrangel by the local Indigenous people, and it was a significant place for teaching and ceremonial practice, was a quarantine station. By the time it closed in 1977, over 13,000 people had isolated there, as infectious diseases, including the Spanish flu, wreaked their havoc. 13,000 people is a lot of people. However, the most tragic disease to hit the Sydney area was the 1789 smallpox epidemic. Up to 7 out of 10 First Nations people died. That's a lot of people. It was such a massive blow for the local communities, impacting their social structures in ways from which they have never fully recovered. And today, the pandemic that we are experiencing provides an occasion to reflect on what COVID has taught us about ourselves and about the spirit of WugulOra. It's a mixed picture. The early rushes on supermarket supplies, including by city visitors to country towns, was not particularly edifying behaviour. There were the early difficulties in communication, especially in culturally diverse communities. There was fear. There were the responses in trying to get it right. In September last year, my office received a call from a distressed grandmother we had met in Wilcannia. And she said, "What do we do? How can we isolate it? We need help." The community certainly needed help. It should have arrived earlier, but help did come. From local and extended family communities, from health workers, the Defence Services, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, the principal and the teachers at Wilcannia Central School who spent 10 hours one Saturday packing food boxes. That's what we mean by one mob, but it is a reminder that communities too often can be left behind. There are many other stories. Some got media attention, some didn't. One important initiative was the work of the Department of Justice, which helped find temporary accommodation for 4,350 rough sleepers. St Vincent's Hospital set up a street vaccination hub down in Woolloomooloo for homeless and disadvantaged people. There were real estate agents who delivered care packages to troubled tenants. And throughout it all, our healthcare and our frontline workers have served the community tirelessly and selflessly. These are the stories of the true spirit of WugulOra. In the Sydney language, the words of our National Anthem, Advance Australia Fair, translate as Yiribana Australia Gal, this way Australians. So I'll finish with those words. Yiribana Australia Gal, Let us learn from these past difficult years. Let's celebrate the good and let's walk together on this path as WugulOra.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now I would like to welcome Kumari and the Buja Buja, or butterfly dancers, to the sand circle to perform Water, choreographed by the amazing Rayma Johnson. Please welcome the dancers to the sand circle. Thank you, Kumari and the Buja Buja dancers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honourable Dominic Perrottet, Premier of New South Wales.
Well, good morning. Can I start by acknowledging Yvonne for that wonderful, deep and thought-provoking welcome to country as usual. And I think today it's not just the opportunity to reflect on what you had to say, but to act on that as well. Can I also pay my respects to all First Nations people, past, present and emerging. I acknowledge Your Excellency, the Governor, my ministerial colleagues, Andrew Parker, and the entire work that you've been doing in relation to, once again, another successful Australia Day event over the course of this period of time, and the Leader of the Opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, can I thank the Elders and the community for making us so welcome today at this ancient cleansing ceremony. WugulOra, as we know, means one mob. And that captures the heart and the spirit of what Australia must be about in 2022, as we rise to the challenges and the opportunities that face our nation in the short term and in the future. One mob, one people, unity. In a nation that has become home to people from every corner of the globe and all walks of life, our strength is in our unity. Now, this may not yet be a reality, but it must be our goal. And I do believe that the tide is turning. And for a new generation, unity is within reach. But that begins by acknowledging the truth of our past. Acknowledging that this day represents immense loss and hurt for many First Nations people. And honouring a culture which continues unbroken today, rich and vibrant, precious and proud. A living culture which can be at the heart of our culture, now and into the future. Shortly, we'll hear the National Anthem performed by Karla. And I can tell you, if you haven't heard them yet, you're in for a treat. I had the privilege of seeing Karla last week at the Australia Day address. And when I heard the National Anthem sung first in Eora and then in English, it gave me goosebumps. To see the different elements of our nation's identity coming together so perfectly was incredible. This is what unity can look like. And I believe it is just one example of the many opportunities before us to forge a future where all Australians are united. So let's do it. Let's make it happen, not just with words, but with action. Not just the next generation, but for ours. Over the past 2 years, the difficult times of the pandemic, we've seen what our country can do when we all work together. And on this Australia Day, we need to be more determined than ever to create change that makes a real difference, that closes the gap and honours the dignity of every Indigenous Australian, past, present and future. We can do it, we must do it, and we will do it if we work together as one mob. WugulOra. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. And now we have a special performance of Kalkarungu Yoru, composed by William Barton and performed today by William on Yidaki with singers Anna Fraser, Andrew O'Connor and Mark Donnelly. William Barton is Australia's leading Yidaki player, award-winning composer, instrumentalist and vocalist, and creative consultant for Australia Day 2021 and 2022. Kalkarungu Yoru is a dedication to William's people, the Kalkarun of far northwestern Queensland, Mount Isa. The song is about passing down culture from one generation to the next. William says, "We watch, listen and learn from our elders in a process around the campfire at night. As we sing this song, we connect and pay homage to the ancestors of the land and the spirit that lives, acknowledging elders and custodians, past, present, and future." Please welcome William, Anna, Mark, and Andrew to the stage. Thank you for that beautiful performance. Tune in to ABC tonight at 7:30 p.m. to see more of William's amazing work on Australia Day Live. And for our last performance this morning, I invite the Kari Singers to join William on stage to perform the National Anthem. Kari Singers are a talented group of vocalists who pride themselves on sharing culture and captivating audiences with their unique sound and performance style. They will sing the anthem first in Eora and then in English. Eora is also referred to as the Sydney language. It's the original language of the land that we're on today. The language was resurrected from the diaries of Lieutenant William Dawes, in which he recorded conversations with a young Gadigal woman named Padaragung in 1788. I was recently reminded that to utter just one of our language words, that word must have passed through thousands of generations. And I just want to give my thanks today to our teachers of language, of culture and of dance. In your program, you will find the Eora translation. We invite you to follow along so as to deepen the story and keep the local language alive. Due to COVID-19, we ask that you refrain from singing today and instead listen as the Kari singers perform for you. And now we invite those of you who can to please stand for the Australian National Anthem.
Karla, it is always so moving watching William Barton perform.
Yeah, isn't he incredible?
Oh, yeah.
And the dancers. That dance performed earlier was called Water and was choreographed by Wiradjuri woman Rayma Johnson. What a performance.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's all from us here at the WugulOra morning ceremony. We'll go now to the ABC newsroom and then stay with us for the National Citizenship and Flag Raising ceremony from Canberra.
Yeah, thanks for joining us and look after yourselves today, you mob. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.